The fallout to the collapse of the European Super League continues. Alex Crook has rejoined us in the studio. He's been right across this over the last 48 hours. And Juve have issued a statement, as we were just saying there, that they've kind of not said they're definitely pulling out. They're just saying that the tournament can't really go ahead. That's understandable with three teams, really.
Yeah, I mean, inevitably they will pull out eventually. The same for Barcelona and Real Madrid. They're the three clubs that have yet to formally withdraw. That the paperwork is in, certainly for the six English clubs, and AC Milan, Inter Milan have joined them today as well. Atletico Madrid. But I think the attention now, guys, is very much turned to the way that football is governed in this country and to how we can avoid a repeat of this situation. Because let's not kid ourselves, this is not the first time that these clubs have tried to break away into a European Super League, and it may well not be the last. I think certainly the 14 Premier League clubs that were in danger of being left behind, they want to change in infrastructure so they can have more power over the Big Six. I think there's a feeling that the Big Six have been trying to bully those 14 clubs for a number of years now, and I think by coming together, and they were all united in their condemnation of this Super League, they feel that the balance of power perhaps is shifting, but it might well need government intervention. Boris Johnson held talks with several high-profile supporters clubs yesterday, and indeed the Premier League before that meeting of the 14 clubs. One of those supporters clubs was the Football Supporters Association. They released a particularly strong statement earlier today. Just to give you a flavour of it, they say 72 hours of white-hot anger has killed domestic involvement in the European Super League, but that doesn't mean that fans can take their foot off the accelerator. A return to the status quo is unacceptable and will only allow unscrupulous owners to regroup. So pretty strong words from them. And a little earlier today, I spoke to Ashley Brown, who is Head of Supporter Engagement and Governance at the FSA, and I asked him in particular about the prospect of English football following the German model of the 50+1 ownership.
That's interesting stuff, Alex. There's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, in the last 24 hours about some of the current owners get out of our club, sell our club. But the nature of the clubs now means you wouldn't get a vastly different character whoever came in. The only people able to buy those are people very much like them, sort of billionaires. You're not going to get the bloke who's got a successful chain of hardware shops who lives in your town buying your club anymore. Those days are gone. So, and if Elon Musk comes in, decides he's had enough of going to space and wants to buy Manchester United, he's probably going to pass a fit and proper person's test, isn't he?
Yeah, two strands to that. You're dead right. You aren't going to get a Sir Jack Walker come in and take his hometown team to win the Premier League title. Unfortunately, stories like that just don't exist in football anymore, and the current structure of the Premier League doesn't lend itself to that. In terms of the clubs selling up, and obviously the Liverpool fans in particular have been very vocal about wanting their owners to leave now. The reality is that probably 18 of the 20 clubs in the Premier League are up for sale, possibly with the exception of Manchester City and Chelsea. If somebody's going to come in and give the Liverpool owners a decent profit on their initial investment, they'll take it. It's the same with the Glazers at Manchester United. But this is a bad time to buy a football club. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, and you have to remember that in the eyes of the six clubs, the whole reason they were looking at this Super League was to try and compensate for some of the lost revenue that they've suffered over the last year or so. So these owners are here to stay. That's the reality. Fans can protest all they want. Manchester United fans have been protesting against the Glazers almost since day one. They had those green and gold protests with the scarf. Doesn't make a jot of difference. And these owners have proved that despite what John W. Henry said this morning, they don't really care about what the supporters think of them. They've got thick skins. They're business people. So it isn't going to change, but I think what will change is the government will try and keep a much tighter hold now on who can invest in clubs.
Do you think it will? I mean, I'm cynical about so many parts of this. I'm cynical about, people portraying UEFA or PSG as the good guys, or Abramovich is not necessarily being not really as sure as the other ones about it. I'm cynical about, the 14 clubs going, this is a disgrace. Had one of those 14 been invited in, would they have gone, oh, obviously not? I mean, I'm just so cynical about every part of this. And I just find it incredibly... I also think, fans have accepted a lot of this, have had success. Fans of these clubs have had success, and it feels interesting that this was the moment that suddenly it was like, well, suddenly we hate all these billionaires. Because a lot of those fans have cheered their teams lifting trophies with those owners.
Football fans are nothing if not fickle, and if Liverpool deliver the title next season, then I think the protests, if there are going to be protests, and I think they probably will in the short term, will quickly dilute. What I would say about the clubs in the Premier League, you're right. I mean, if Everton were invited into the Super League, then their stance may well have been a lot different, but these 14 clubs do seem to have joined together, and there's been a lot of talk about recriminations and punishment dished out to the Rebel Six. I'm not sure we're going to see points deductions. We could see fines, although at the moment I think that the bulk of those 14 clubs, rather than trying to jump down on these six like a ton of bricks, they just want a change in the way that the Premier League is regulated. They want more control, because I think they feel for a number of years now the Big Six have wielded too much power. And back to that fit and proper persons test that we were talking to Ashley Brown about there. I mean, it was a disgrace, really. I covered Portsmouth when they had more owners than points in one season. It was ridiculous. I think it has been tightened up. We've seen the Saudi takeover at Newcastle has been thrown out by the Premier League. That was them growing some gumption and showing their teeth. If those owners tried to come in 3 or 4 years ago, I think it would probably have got over the line. And also, with the government intervention, I know historically the clubs in the Premier League have been holding back against that. They want to govern themselves. I think that's starting to waver. There's some of those 14 clubs now who actually, in the wake of this, are thinking maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing if the government can get more involved.
Alex, thanks very much.
Cheers, Alex.
Yeah, we'll keep discussing this. We'll look at some of the aspects of what's gone on that Alex was alluding to there, and we'll discuss those throughout the show. But we will be touching on what Max just said there about who are the good guys, and are there any good guys in this? Plus, Danny Kelly joins us. He mentioned Blackburn there, and Graham Lasso will be the subject of the My Sporting Life archive chat.
Just for clarification, Anthony does make a good point. For clarity, Spurs fans have not jumped and cheered at their club winning things being backed by billionaire owners. It's a fair point.
That is very. I can certainly vouch for that, Anthony. That is true.